It's the A-Side B-Side podcast.
With Brooke and Adam. That wasn't bad.
Have you ever thought to yourself, man, I sure would like to make a podcast. I've got so much to say about blank. Well, if you haven't heard about Anchor, you really should. It is the easiest way to make a podcast, and it's absolutely free. All right, I'm going to tell you why it's so easy. Okay, so with Anchor, there's creation tools that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many others. And you can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Trust me, I'm so excited about this. You can be too. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Welcome back. Hey, we're so happy to be here. So Adam, how was your week?
It was very weird and up and down, but like most weeks in the life of COVID-19, it's kind of par for the course. Like, we survived. As far as I know, no one turned into a zombie yet, which, I mean, I lost that bet. I put about $100 down in Vegas saying someone's going to be a zombie by July, and now we're in August.
It's only August. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I really missed the boat on that one. Took the under, should have taken the over.
A lot of stuff happened in the news this week. Of course, we got Kanye still, which I'm like, Kanye, can you just sit down? Like, just.
I mean, is this anything new though? Like, he's always been somebody who pushes the envelope and does weird things. Like I don't know that it seems slightly more out there, but
I mean, usually you get a chuckle out of it, or you're like, oh, Kanye, he's just being Kanye. But this time, it's like, Kanye, you're messing in some big waters here.
Yeah, but he did this 2 years ago when he started to do the whole politics thing. I mean, everyone's like, Kanye, what are you doing? And then it quieted down for a while, and now he's doing it again. I mean, the man, in my personal opinion, doesn't think there's anything such as bad press. And we're talking about Kanye on a podcast about true crime and nostalgia, which kind of proves his point.
Very valid point. Also, thoughts and prayers. Wish we could do more, and we will figure out how to do more and put it on our website for the people of Beirut and their awful tragedy that happened in the last couple of days. I mean,
like, I'm guessing everybody's seen the
video.
But if I didn't know it was real, like, that looks like it's out of a 90s movie about a disaster.
It looks like a Michael Bay explosion.
Yes. And there's no one running from it because that explosion is so big, you can't run from that. It's one of those things, like, you see and you're like, your brain tells you that can't possibly be real. I mean, like, 9/11 was the same thing. I remember watching it in my house. I was woken up from a slumber by my roommate to go out. He's like, hey, you should probably look at this. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't care. I'm so sleepy. And then all of a sudden, that was when the second plane hit. And that image is burned into my brain forever because it's still, even in that moment, it didn't feel real.
Yeah. I mean,
I could see it. I could see it, and I still didn't believe it.
This is going to be one of those days that we remember. 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate. Just to put it in perspective, it was 2 tons in 1995 in Oklahoma City, and we know how much damage that did.
Yeah.
So imagine 2,700 tons. That's the devastation is, it's unimaginable.
And the before and after pictures, I mean, there's a new harbor. I mean, the hole that was created now that the sea has taken it back over because water's going to water. But it's kind of I mean, it is unbelievable. Like, we can see it, we can experience it, but it's still, like, there are things that, like I said, like you said, it was like a Michael Bay movie. It feels so foreign that it feels fiction.
Yeah.
I mean, on Sunday, I was out walking the dog, and I'm about a half block from my house, and I see a police cruiser flip its lights on and start rolling down my street. And I'm like, well, that's weird. And then weirder still, it parks in front of my house.
Whoa.
And I'm on a walk with the dog. I don't have a security system. There's no one in my house. Like, why? What could have happened? So now I start running, which my dog thinks is the greatest thing ever because she's like, "Yay, we're running!" And now we're running like full speed because once we start running, she doesn't know how to stop. So I'm just like full on sprinting across a baseball field to get to my house. By the time I get to my house, and granted, I'm sprinting, so this probably took 5 minutes. And by the time I get there, there are 4 more squads outside of my house.
What in the world?
I'm like, what's going on? And I walk up with my dog, and I can't see any cops. They're not at my house. And I have a very tree-lined lot, so you can't really see it from the street. So I was like, maybe they're like around the side or something. But I'm like, also, I don't want to like walk around my house being like, "Hi, cops. Hi, I've got a dog. What's going on?" You know, because that could potentially spook them.
Right.
So I go inside, put the dog away, and then I come back outside and pretend to smoke a cigar because I'm like, I need a reason to be outside. Granted, it's 11:30 on a Sunday, like broad daylight. This is not the time you expect for nefarious acts.
I love that you felt you needed to have an excuse to be outside of your own house.
Right. I know it's kind of where we're at right now. I mean, odds are a 5'10" white dude would probably be okay no matter if I just walked outside and be like, "Hey guys, what's up?" But I felt the need to be like, "Oh, I'm smoking a cigar now at 11:30 in the morning for no apparent reason."
With my bourbon.
I was just like, "Hey, what are you guys doing here? Lovely day for a raid." Turns out that my neighbor's house, while I was on a dog walk, got broken into. And they're much smarter than I am. And they had one of those Ring doorbell camera things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they saw, and full scope, my neighbors are currently on vacation in Florida. So they haven't been home. They're retired. They travel a lot. So somebody knew that this house was not being currently occupied.
Right.
And so, but they saw it on the video, and the guy like walks up, opens the screen door, knocks on the door, waits about 90 seconds, doesn't hear anything inside, and then just kicks the door in.
Whoa.
Like just nonchalant, like, "Oops, I tripped and I knocked this door over." Just kicks it in. The alarm goes off. He hits a couple buttons on the thing. Like maybe he thought he knew the code. He probably just tried 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, that's what I would have done. He tries the code, doesn't work. And then he just nonchalantly walks off.
What in the world?
And so the cops are here. They're outside. And all of this is happening. And I'm like, this doesn't feel real. This feels like a bad CBS sitcom right now. This is not actually happening in my life. I live in an okay area. Like people don't just break into houses at 11:30 on a Sunday morning. And
I guess you figure there's no better time.
I guess. Yeah. I'm sure Kate's the place and knew they weren't in town. But again, it was one of those things where you see it and as all of it is happening in real life and you can see it and you can feel it, you still don't believe it. And that's the exact same feeling that I got. I mean, I first saw it on Twitter, and I think we've all been a little bit trained to doubt things that we see on social media. And so I waited for some sort of other confirmation that this was a thing that actually happened in Beirut, because at first I was like, no, that's way too big an explosion. That can't be real. And it really was really real.
It was very real. And again, our thoughts and prayers are with them. And the moment we find out what more we can do to help, we will post that on our website, asidebsidepodcast.com. Well, on that note, I think it's your turn to start.
It is. And I am so glad that I took it to such a weird and dark place before I get to go talk about happy memories.
All right. So happy memories.
So one of the biggest moments of when I was a little kid, and when I say little kid, I'm talking like 8th grade and under. Everything before high school is little kid to me.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a small private school, so we didn't have middle school. It was just all grade school. So I never got the mental change of going to middle school. But when I was a little kid, and we're talking 2nd, 3rd grade, one of the biggest treats that we could have had on the way home from school to where we were living, there was a video store on the way. And often if we had had a good day or we had had a good week or some sort of reward, my mom and dad would allow us to stop at the video store, which was cleverly named Mr. Movies because it was just full of movies, and pick out
At least you
a
never
movie
get
to watch.
confused.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was no other option. Like, I mean, kids, if you're listening to this, there was no streaming at the time. There was no Netflix. There was no Amazon Prime. My family didn't have HBO, so like we didn't have home box office. We just had VHS.
Wow,
and there were a lot of
you totally took it back. Home
I know.
box office.
Yeah, that's what HBO stands for, folks.
Wow.
Even though they've added HBO Max, Go, and whatnot, and that was the world's worst relaunch because you can't have 4 names for the same thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. That's not a good idea, HBO. But they used to be home box office because it was literally movies in your home, so you didn't have to go anywhere. And so that was the prize, was to go to Mr. Movies and pick out a VHS. And my brother and I have my little brother who is 3 years younger than I, we would both basically just like sprint into the store like it was old school supermarket sweep. Like, we got to find the one that we want first. And it was pretty much a selection of about 5 to 6 movies. I mean, like, this place had hundreds and hundreds of movies, but we were going to go for one of these 5 to 6 movies. Part of the reason was Mr. Movies, if they had a copy of a movie, they had a copy of that movie. So this wasn't like there were 13 different, Titanics you could rent. It was like, oh, there's one Titanic, and if it's out, you best find your next movie.
Right.
So we would run to the places that we knew where our favorite movies were. And for me, it was very alphabetical. Like, the great thing about the store is it was lined up in alphabetical order, which, quite frankly, doesn't happen nearly enough. Like, can you imagine if Target was in alphabetical order? I would get my stuff so much faster.
Yeah, but they'd have a lot less sales because you know exactly where everything is.
That's true.
There's no meandering. There's no wandering around the store aimlessly.
There's no impulse buying when you go from A to B to C.
Exactly.
But as a kid whose first 30 research papers of his life were developed at the local county library, you figure out the entire ABC system pretty quick. So we get there, and my first look was always Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Bedknobs and Broomsticks is an old Disney movie starring Angela Lansbury about a magical flying 4-post bed that takes you to magical places, and then you come back. Sometimes that would be available. But if it wasn't, my second stop was always in the seas to what at that time, in my ignorance and bliss, was probably my number 3 superhero of all time. I mean, Superman obviously was up there because I remember watching the Superman movies, the Christopher Reeve movies when I was a kid. He was always up there. Batman was just cool because, he's Batman. Number 3 was Condor Man.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Condor Man.
Yes.
Do you remember Condor Man?
I do. And even the suit was kind of cheesy.
Oh, it was so cheesy. It was actually, so Condor Man is a 1981 Disney movie about a comic book artist whose friend works for the CIA and whose friend gets sick. So he has to sub in for his friend on this secret drop of information between a Russian agent and the CIA. But because this guy's just a comic book artist, he doesn't know anything about how to be a spy. And so he just pretends to be the character from the comic book that he writes, which is Condor Man. It turns into this wild, series of events where there's a car chase. And then at one point he has to fly off the Eiffel Tower with his wings. And Siskel and Ebert actually reviewed it as one of the top 5 worst movies of 1981. And they said one of the things that stands out about this movie is it's not so special effects. And they went through and I've found the clip on YouTube. They went through and point out where you can see the harness string when he's flying and how this is the world's worst green screen. And they did not mince words. They went for it. They were just full on Mean Girls destroyed Condor Man. However, as a kid, I'm like, this guy's awesome. If he fights in a restaurant, and somehow there's a flaming dish that he turns into a flamethrower because he accidentally drinks some alcohol and then blows that at the bad guy and it becomes a flamethrower, and that's so cool. And it has, arguably, even though it's not a great movie, it's got a really good car chase. And he's got a special like Lamborghini that has flame coming out the back. And the main character, played by Michael Crawford, is this sort of lovable but bumbling human. He's not James Bond. He's not Swab and Debonair. He's just sort of finding his way through. It was very much if you remember the old like sort of Pink Panther movies, where he's this bumbling police detective, but he actually ends up getting the job done, even though he doesn't realize he's doing it. Very right. Mr. Bean, or what's the cartoon character that can't see anything? Mr. Magoo, like where you're always thinking he's going to walk off the bridge, but then immediately some other like beam shows up and he's just fine, but he doesn't know that he's ever in danger.
Exactly.
And I love this movie. I even, for a very short period of time when I was 18, had plans to get a Condor Man tattoo. Whoa. Which we could do an entire hour on tattoos Adam is glad he didn't get. This is one of them, because one, that's not a good idea. And two, why do you want a tattoo of a 1981 made up superhero on your thigh? It's very strange.
Yeah, I think you would. It would definitely be a conversation starter.
Right. Yeah, but not on my thigh. Not unless I'm wearing a Speedo. So that was just an extra confusion. I was like, why would I do any of this? Which, I mean, quite frankly, is usually the second thing I ask myself every morning. Why would I do any of this? But what I found out years later kind of ties into what we talked about last week, whereas sometimes you experience art at a certain point in time and you understand it because of where you're at, and you'll never forget that moment. But then later you learn something else that changes kind of your entire perception of that piece of art. And so Condor Man, to me, to this day, I have it on VHS. When one of the many video stores here in the Twin Cities was going out of business, I found a version of Condor Man, and it's not in like, it doesn't even have like the outside casing with like the picture on it. It's just got like a white box.
Oh no.
And yeah, because that's all they had. Like there's no art on it. It's just the VHS tape and a white box. And I've got it, and I love the movie to this day. It is one of the many things that I am occasionally bugging Disney Plus to add to their collection when I'm on Twitter. You know, it's just like, hey, Wolfram Brimley was in a Star Wars. We should probably let everybody know that. Also, where the hell is Condor Man? Because the guy's my jam. What I did not realize until I was a junior in high school, so we're talking 1997, 1988, and I was talking about my 5 favorite movies with my girlfriend at the time, and I mentioned Condor Man, and she's like, "I've never heard of this movie. This is not a real movie. You're making it up. You're being silly. This is not a real movie." So then, because it was the advent of the digital age, she used the internet and looked up Condor Man. And then the next day at school, she's like, "Hey, did you know that Condor Man is Michael Crawford?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course I did." Meaning I had no idea who Michael Crawford was or that he was Condor Man. She's like, "So you know who Michael Crawford is, right?" And I go, yeah, but remind me. Somehow, Michael Crawford, who has had an amazing career in all sorts of, I mean, he started out, he's from England. So he has been he was in a British sitcom in the 1960s and 70s that was very well beloved, and it was very slapstick, and he was sort of over the top. I mean, almost, it kind of sounds like it was like a little bit like the Dick Van Dyke Show, but like way more closer to the slapstick comedy of Monty Python. And he was a big star, and then that went off the air, and he actually was unemployed for a while and was working. His wife at the time worked for a company that was a upholsterer, And so his job was to literally just stuff cushions with stuff. Like she would sew the cushions and he would like just stuff them. And he had completely dropped out of the public eye. He had not done any theater or film. And then he slowly started to get back into it. And Condor Man was actually theoretically this big break that he had. It was a Disney movie. And even Disney in the early 80s, that's a big deal. That's like that could be a substantial paycheck. But again, the movie did not do well. Siskel and Ebert made fun of it like Mean Girls. And it seemed again that his entire career was probably going to be over and he might have to go back to stuffing cushions. But wait, he doesn't even have that job anymore because during the unemployment period when he was stuffing cushions at his wife's factory, they had a falling out and they got divorced.
Mm-hmm.
Now he can't even have the fallback stuffing cushions job. So he was lucky enough to get a couple of other roles. And then one day he was at voice lessons. Now, Michael Crawford, as I understood him, was just a slapstick comedian who played a great superhero who was also a comic book artist or vice versa. What I did not realize is the man was a classically trained singer and had been in musicals all the way back into the 1950s when he was a very young boy. So he's at voice lessons one day with his voice teacher working on a new aria from a classical opera. And the person who is going to be taking voice lessons just after him is Sarah Brightman, who is married to Andrew Lloyd Webber. And Andrew Lloyd Webber at the time was working on a musical that he had originally developed as a rock opera. But as it kind of got going, they realized the rock opera really wasn't the style that they needed. And they were going something a little bit more classical opera. And as he's sitting there, Andrew Lloyd Webber is sitting with his wife, waiting for her appointment to start, probably bored out of his mind, because here he is, a classical, like one of the most talented and accomplished conductors, writers, composers of his generation, but he's just sitting outside of his wife's,
as a good husband should.
As yes, supporting her, doing the whole thing, but also like he was in the middle of trying to rewrite Phantom of the Opera and change it from being a rock musical into a more classical, more operatic style. And so he's sitting here and he hears the gentleman in the session ahead of his wife and like basically bursts in and says, "Hey, I don't know you, but would you like to audition for this opera I'm doing? Because I think your voice would be perfect," which is super weird. But Michael Crawford, being the guy that he is, just rolls with it, says, "Sure, I would love to come down and audition." Within a week, he is hired as the person to first perform as the Phantom of Phantom of the Opera. He went on to do over 1,300 performances as the Phantom. He won a Tony, he won an Olivier Award, he won just about every single award you could win as a musical theater performer for Phantom of the Opera.
Let me tell you really quickly, living in Buffalo, Toronto is just a couple hours away, and in high school went to the theater in Toronto that was built for the Phantom. And to this day, I can probably sing every single song and recite every line because it is still one of my favorite performances.
This man became one of the most famous voices in all of musical theater. And I only remembered him as Condor Man.
And he might take that as a compliment.
And I think he would. He'd be like, "Oh my God, you're like the only kid who saw this movie and evidently thought it was a real action movie and thought it was something to be watched over and over and to buy the VHS." But it speaks to that point where like I enjoyed his performance. Like I still love that movie. Like I can see scenes from it in my mind's eye right now. And I haven't probably physically seen it in 15 years. But this gentleman went on to be the most famous Phantom of the Opera of all time and has continued to work with Andrew Lloyd Webber and other things. And like this man's voice has resonated in households and soundtracks across the world. And I just remember that he drank some alcohol and then spit it into a flaming drink and created a flamethrower. And I thought that was really cool. So I guess my full point being, you never know the whole story until you start to examine it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will thank Lisa to this day for being the one to Google, because I thought Condor Man was just a one-off. Like, I don't know, that maybe that guy never acted again. Oh no, it turned out he was the, most famous Phantom of the Opera ever. But every time I see a Phantom of the Opera poster, and my father went to London in the late 90s and went to Phantom of the Opera and saw Michael Crawford and got me a poster. This is about a year after I figured out who he was. So I have a Phantom of the Opera poster, but simply because I love the guy in Condor Man.
But have you actually seen Phantom?
Yes, not live. I've never seen it live. I've seen his performance as a Phantom on the YouTubes a lot. But it's one that I have never gotten to see live. And but it's also like there are certain shows, and this is probably unfair, but like I wouldn't want to go see Hamilton without the original cast.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I've seen the original cast on the Disney Plus show.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Rent so many times with members of the original cast that for me, the movie is still hard to watch because it's almost there, but there were so many great actresses that played Mimi that we didn't need to grab an actress with a name. And Rosario Dawson did a great job, but there were still some people that should have been in that movie that weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of the original cast was, and that's where it was frustrating, was like, you guys almost got it, but you decided to like wimp out at the last second. So I, at this point, after having watched his performances on YouTube and having the personal connection to the story where I'm always gonna be like, Phantom of the Opera, that's just Condor Man 2.
Maybe a little more, but okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's if I could see it with him, if I could go back in time and see it with him in one of those 13 over like a 5-year period is insane. If I could have seen one of those, I would do it in a second.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is now it feels like whenever I see it live, it's going to feel like a relaunch or a high school or a college production, because it's not going to be the genuine article. And they will be amazing singers and it will be the same music. But for me, it wouldn't have Michael Crawford, so it wouldn't be the same.
Okay, I get it. I get that point. But I will tell you, it was fantastic and life-changing. I mean, for a high schooler to see that production live,
oh yeah,
it was life-changing. And
I mean,
it's a trip I'll never forget.
And again, and we talked a little bit last week about live music, and I really hope we can find a way through this whole COVID thing, because we have done a disservice to so many children when we made them read Shakespeare in an English class and go desk by desk and each one reads a line, because live theater is meant to be seen and heard and experienced, not read. It's not a book. And we've done a huge disservice. And if people don't get to see theater live, they don't get it. If you want to turn a bunch of people off to Shakespeare, make them read it out loud when they are teenagers.
See, we watched the movie. I know we read the books, but we also watched the movie. There was a movie that we watched. It was like I think it was like from the 70s or something.
Oh, it's from the 50s. It's the one where there's actual nudity in it.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. That was, we all heard about that beforehand. So that was the one class where most of us were paying attention.
So Condor Man 2.
Yes. Also known as Phantom of the Opera.
All right.
Like I could literally start singing the theme song right now.
To Phantom or Condor Man?
Condor Man.
Oh, go for it.
Condor Man. It's not Andrew Lloyd Webber, It is actually Henry Mancini, which is super weird.
Now I know that name. What else has he done?
He's a composer that is way better than what he wrote for Condor Man, which he literally probably wrote like on the toilet. It like took him 5 minutes. He was just sitting there and he's like, da, 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 Condor Man, da, 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 Condor Man.
Flush.
Yeah, and he was like, and we're good. Check, please. And Disney was like, yes.
Well, now I have to like look for Condor Man. I know it's on Amazon Prime. I just looked. It's on like
is it?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime and it's on Vudu and something else that you can rent. I think it's iTunes and you can rent it.
But how is it not on Disney Plus?
Well, apparently they haven't felt the need to add it yet.
Evidently, they're not listening to my many tweets about the several movies I would like to see on Disney Plus.
You can watch it on YouTube for $2.99.
I might do that tonight. Condor Man.
All right. Michael Crawford. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
No, you were gonna say you don't get to do that. You were about to say something.
I'm gonna save it.
Okay. Are you gonna save it for the end?
Yeah, I'm gonna save it for the end.
Okay, good. I like that.
Who can save Princess Juliet? Held captive by the evil Count Lorca? Who can save the city? Who?
All right, so now we have recovered from your Condor Man. Condor Man. And that's going to be in my head.
Condor Man. It's a really catchy tune. Henry Mancini knows what he's doing.
All right, so what's in a name? Well, actually, first, let me back up. I promised.
Wait, there's too much. Let me sum up.
I promised an update, if there was any, on last week's case. There is still no update on Eric Spar, no autopsy results. But I promise as soon as there is an update, it will be posted in our broadcast.
And not to pull us too far away from the main topic, but has anybody found the dude from Chicago yet?
No.
The French guy? There's no update on that?
Haven't heard any updates on Xavier either. I'm making
my list. People from Chicago, you like to get on this. Come on. I mean, like, what else are you doing? It's COVID.
All right. So what's in a name, especially if the name is Mary Morris? This is the story of the murders of Mary Morris. So on October...
Is this like a... Go ahead, sorry.
Is this like a what?
It sounds like, the Terminator thing where he just killed everybody named Sarah Connor.
Kind of, yeah. So on October 12th, the morning of October 12th, it was like any other morning for 48-year-old Mary Lou Henderson Morris. She said goodbye to her husband of 5 years, Jay, as she left for her job. She was a really well-liked bank officer. Everybody had such wonderful things to say about her. She had tons of friends. Her husband loved her. Her daughter said that she was just the sweetest person in the world. I mean, she was a bank officer, so I'm sure somebody was like, you didn't give me a loan. But she was probably so nice when she did it. It was like, okay.
I guess you're right, lady. I don't need this money. I guess my business won't happen.
Well, this day was different. So Mary leaves for work and Jay, for whatever reason, calls Mary. She doesn't answer her phone. So Jay calls and calls and calls, and the calls go unanswered all day long, which is really unusual because Mary usually picks up the phone and checks in with Jay. I mean, they're a happily married couple. Every once in a while, he's just like, hey, hon, how are you? Have a great day.
Yeah. So just for context, what time frame are we talking? Is this like landline? Is she?
This is October 12th of 2000.
Okay. So potentially cell, probably landline, maybe a bit of both.
Probably, yes. Well, that day at 10:20 a.m., someone reported seeing smoke out in the middle of a field type area, but the fire department just kind of attributed it to a controlled burn, didn't respond. Well, 5 o'clock that afternoon, an ATV rider was out in this field area where the fire had been reported earlier, and a car was found completely burned out with a body inside.
So this was like not a subtle fire.
No, this was a massive fire.
Like you can't burn a car a little bit.
The body inside the car was so burned, they couldn't recognize it, couldn't determine a cause of death. All they could do was get a dental record and used that to identify the body. And it was the body of Mary Lou Henderson Morris. Well,
This is also a reminder that everybody should go to the dentist at least once a year so you can be identified when you die.
that's so morbid. Well,
But also true.
the next day, there's a call to the Houston Chronicle. The call says they got the wrong Mary Morris, and they hang up. So this newspaper receives this phone call, and they're like, what? Nobody has any clue what they're talking about until 3 days later on October 16th of 2000. So let's start with what happened to Mary Morris. On that day, Mary Lou...
So it's a different Mary Morris.
This is a different Mary Morris. On that day, Mary Morris is, if I said Mary Lou, I apologize. It's Mary McGinnis Morris. She's 39 years old. She's a nurse. She's in charge of several different clinics. And on this day, which happened to be a Sunday, she stopped by one of her clinics and she met up with her friend Lori. She gave Lori an allergy shot and she said, hey, I'm going to finish up, run some errands, and then I'm going to go home for the day. So she's in the midst of running her errands. She stops at a drugstore and she is creeped out by an individual. She calls her friend Lori and she's like, Lori, this guy is creeping me out, but it's not bad enough to where I'm completely freaked out. He's just giving me the creeps a little bit. And, I just wanted to let somebody know. She said,
I was going to say, like, it's still a level where she's calling her friend.
Right.
That's a pretty high level.
And as women, we do that. If something doesn't sit right, you're like, look, in case something happens, I don't think anything's going to happen. But just in case this is the situation, here's where I am. Here's the deal. Whatever.
Yeah,
I just want somebody to know.
Yeah, just being cautious, being smart.
So she calls Lori. She says that she tells Lori, I'm going to go back to the office. I'm going to log out of my computer. I'm going to shut everything down and I'm going home. 12 minutes after that call to Lori was placed, a frantic call to 911 comes in. It's Mary McGinnis Morris. She tells the 911 operator that she has been abducted and attacked. 911 has never released this call because it's so disturbing. They've never released the call or the transcripts. Well, later that afternoon, Mary's body was found in a car in a secluded area. She had been beaten badly and she had been shot to death. But it was set up to look like a suicide.
I mean, I don't know a lot about suicides, but I don't remember most of them beating themselves up before they did it.
Exactly. So police in this case, it's a little different than the other Mary Morris, Mary Lou Morris. In this case, they have a couple of suspects. One suspect is a coworker named Dwayne. Dwayne was a nurse that worked with Mary, and for whatever reason, they just didn't get along. And Mary had reported him a few times. There was a time that he'd gone into her office and kind of set things in a disarray. And on a calendar, there was scrawled "death to her."
I mean, that's a lot.
That's
a lot.
Not
little. That's a lot.
So we don't know if that's who she saw in the drugstore that day or not, but it made her nervous enough that her husband said, look, she was freaked out by this guy. She asked me to get her a gun. I got her a gun. It was registered in my name. I even took her out to practice shooting this gun. Now we get to the other suspect. Who's the first person that the police always suspect when a spouse gets hurt?
The husband.
Exactly.
Or the butler.
Well, they didn't have a butler.
Okay, got to be the husband then.
So Mike Morris, as I mentioned, he got Mary a gun. He said he got Mary a gun. And the gun that she was murdered with was her gun. We're going to get to that in a second.
So he produced the murder weapon for her.
We'll get to that in a second. So police interview Mike. Mike says, at the time of Mary's murder, I was at the movies with my daughter. This is his daughter, not their joint daughter. It's a daughter from a previous relationship.
Gotcha.
So they ask him to take a polygraph. He says no. They ask to interview his daughter. He says no. He stops cooperating, hires an attorney. Mary and Mike were having some issues in their marriage. One thing was they had just moved to Houston. This is where this took place. They were in Houston.
Yep.
And Mike could not find steady employment. So that was kind of adding stress to already a stressful situation for Mary because she had this coworker that, she wasn't getting along with. And then Mike started accusing Mary and a friend of theirs of infidelity. Mary said it's not true. He confronted the friend. The friend said it's not true. He claims he took them on their word and dropped it, but we don't really know.
Right.
Mary also had a $700,000 life insurance policy on her.
In 2000.
In 2000.
I mean, it's not that long ago, but it's a long time ago.
Look, in 2020, $700,000 is a lot of money. So 20 years ago, it was a massive amount of money.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot. And I don't mean to get caught up in the minutia.
No minutia, Adam. I'm putting it on a t-shirt.
I know, you should. You should wear it because then I could see it. Because I'm going to forget if I wear it. But at this time, was it clear who the beneficiary was of that massive life insurance policy?
Yes, it was her husband. Yeah. So police continue to investigate. And of course, Mike looks even more like a suspect now because he stopped cooperating. He's hired an attorney. He won't take a polygraph, which I have told you my thoughts on polygraphs. I don't like them. Yeah. I wouldn't take them.
Polygraphs are iffy.
Right. But also, you're a creep, so you should have taken it. I know it's hypocritical. It's, whatever. But that's life. He's a creep.
That's how things go.
So police look at Mike's phone records for the day of Mary's murder. And they see that a call was placed to Mary's phone about the time of her murder. And it lasted for 4 minutes. Mike says, yeah, I called her, but she never answered. The phone company is wrong on the time. She never answered. I didn't talk to her for 4 minutes.
Yeah, 4 minutes is a long time. Like, that's not... Like, I leave a lot of long voice messages, but I don't think I could talk for 4 minutes.
So here's the theory. The police are not saying that this is their theory, but this has been a popular theory on message boards and with the local community. The theory is that Mike put a hit out on his wife, Mary. Now, you've got these two Marys that live very close in proximity. They actually look pretty similar, and they're right about the same age. And of course, they're both Mary Morris. Mm-hmm. The theory is, especially given the phone call to the newspaper, the theory is Mike put a hit out on his wife and the wrong Mary Morris was murdered first.
Damn.
Yeah, I know. I failed to mention this. Actually, I didn't fail, but this is the perfect time to bring it up. Normally, it has been said in cases of murder for hire, the hitman will take something from the victim as proof that the job has been done. A lot of times, if it's a spouse, they take the wedding ring. The only thing missing from Mary Lou Morris's vehicle was her wedding ring and her purse. So robbery theory, gone right there.
Yeah, that's a very weird robbery.
The second Mary McGinnis Morris, was also missing her wedding ring. And again, the gun that killed her was her husband's. He said she used to keep it under the seat for protection. But my question is, who would know that besides him and her? Your random attacker doesn't know that you have a gun hidden under your seat.
No, maybe plausibility level, maybe she drew it and it was taken from her, but even then, that seems unlikely. And who steals just a wedding ring?
Exactly. Of course, again, police are saying these two cases, they claim there's no connection, but come on. They live in the same area. They have the same name. They look alike. Come on. And someone called the paper and said, they got the wrong Mary Morris 3 days before the other one died.
Do we think that was the husband?
I think it was the hitman. Or maybe it was the husband. Maybe it was the husband.
The husband was like, hey, I don't know how to call, the Consumer Reports for hitmen. My guy did the wrong guy. Yeah. So I'm gonna make sure he knows it.
I'm giving you a warning, though, because another Mary Morris is going to die. Well, a couple of months after Mary McGinnis Morris, that's the second Mary,
Yes.
passed, Mike's 16-year-old daughter was seen wearing her ring. Mike says, oh, no. It wasn't on her at the time she died. We found it in the house later after she died.
That's some
BS.
That's some weird stuff right there. One, like, I understand family heirlooms, like you may want to pass from one generation to the other. But how did that conversation go? Like, hey, daughter, I know mom died mysteriously, but here's her ring. Would you like to wear it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not buying it. I think the husband is involved. Like 100%. I think he's involved.
Well, of course, they can't ask the daughter because she's underage, so he can refuse to have her interviewed.
Yeah. So, okay. So 6 months after the very first Mary Lou's death, her husband receives a phone bill for $2,000 from his wife's phone card. So he lets detectives know about this. They trace it to a 16-year-old girl in Galveston who said that her neighbor found it in a purse and she took the card. The neighbor took the purse. They go and they talk to the neighbor. They get the purse back and they show this purse to the family. And the family says, we've never seen this purse ever at all, but it had her belongings in it.
Weird. So they like transferred.
Yeah.
Basically.
So they, of course, they were trying to track down like the purse and everything like that, but that never led to anything.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, I don't know all of my mom's purses.
No, but I think my daughter would be able to say, that's not something my mom would carry. I've never seen that purse before.
No, that's fair.
Or if you were married, you would know. I've never seen my wife carry that purse before.
Yeah, no, I think I wouldn't have noticed because that's why I'm not married anymore.
Okay.
Not noticing things is
valid.
Not a good sign.
Valid point. Also, around the same time, the first Mary, her husband Jay, received some phone calls. But here's the thing. They were phone calls on an unlisted phone number of someone asking for Mary, which of course he's still grieving. It's freaked him out. Yeah. The first couple of times he says, I didn't know what to say. So I just said, she's not here. Then he talks to the police and the police tell him, give them the phone number to the sheriff's department. So the last time this person calls and asks for Mary, he says, she's not here, but you can contact her at this number. And they go, oh yeah, right. And hang up. So
police. I mean, maybe they should have set up a fake phone number that didn't immediately say like cop.
Right. Well, the police traced the call. It led to an apartment complex and an empty apartment.
Wow.
Let me tell you this. There's 2 million people in Houston.
Yeah. It's like a top 5 market. It's huge.
So to have 2 million people in a city and to have 2 women who look alike, who live in the same area and have the same name, I don't find that a coincidence.
I feel like that's statistically improbable. And I'm not good at statistics.
Right. So when I found this story, I was amazed that it had not been talked about more. It was featured on an episode of America's Most Wanted.
Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
Over a 3-day period in Houston, Texas, investigators are called to the scene of 2 brutal murders. Both women are found in their cars. They look surprisingly alike. And most shocking of all, they share the same name, Mary Morris. Is there a connection? Or are these crimes an astonishing coincidence?
But it never really led to no real tips. It didn't lead to anywhere because no one has ever been charged. There's never been a confession. No,
in either murder, nobody's been charged.
And no, not in either murder. Dwayne Young, the coworker, when he's been asked about it, he said, he's like, I would never do that. He said people have come after him about it, but he denies any involvement with it, and I think he's kind of shut down about it now.
Well, yeah, and I mean, let's be honest, we've all had coworkers that we kind of didn't like, but this is way bigger than didn't like.
Yeah,
like it takes like a mental break, a psychotic episode, a really, really bad Monday to get to that level.
He says, I was just a disgruntled worker. I didn't really I wouldn't harm anybody. I didn't harm anybody. Mike and his daughter moved out of Houston shortly after the murders. Mm-hmm. And again, we have no information. Now, I will say I did find out that Mike's sister and Mary's daughter ended up becoming friends because of this.
Yeah, trying to figure out some sort of understanding of the incomprehensible.
Right. I'm sorry, not Mike's sister, Mary's sister. The second Mary's sister and the first Mary's daughter have become very close friends. Tragedy brings people together, especially when you can share in something that really nobody else has ever gone through.
And you're both trying to find some sort of understanding, and really there's only one other family that can truly understand what you're going through in this weird scenario.
Exactly. So we have an unsolved murder that is now going on 20 years. Yeah.
Seems the only thing that changes stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm. Somebody's guilty conscience gets to them on their deathbed and they say, you know what, I was hired and I did the job and I got the wrong one first. I feel bad about it, so I'm confessing.
Yeah.
I don't think any hitman is going to feel bad, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like being a hitman requires a certain lack of conscience.
But maybe at some point it's like, well, yeah, I was paid for this one, but not for that one. I screwed up. That was my bad.
I mean, that's just professional responsibility. I mean, do you get the second one for free at that point?
I mean, he's getting a bad Yelp review too.
Yeah, it's going to be awful. Hitman for hire. Be careful what you ask for.
That was actually a joke website, and a woman tried to use that to hire a hitman to kill her husband, and she got arrested. So don't try to hire a hitman.
No, I mean, if you don't know a guy who knows a guy, then you don't know a guy. So don't hire the guy.
Let's just say you don't know a guy. How about that? You don't know a guy who knows a guy. You don't. You just don't.
Yeah. And even if you think you have a friend who thinks he knows a guy, he probably doesn't know a guy.
He doesn't. Just stop it.
This is not Luis from Ant-Man who's going to be able to be like, I know a guy who knows a guy who had a girlfriend who knew a guy who said to you that, do you want to be part of the Avengers?
It doesn't work like that.
They have missed such an opportunity because they should have a series with him just recapping every movie. Like, tell me you wouldn't click on that. Like, oh, so Luis from Ant-Man is going to tell you what happened in the first part of Infinity War. I would click on that every time. And he could do that from his home right now. Like, just send him a camera. He could just recap movies for you.
Yeah.
Or like the entire first season of Friends. Here's Luis telling you what happened in the first season of Friends.
Now I'm there for that one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'd all be there. We'd like, yes, tell me more. Tell me more. So, you know a guy, knew a guy. Yeah, you're right.
But there you go. That is the murders of Mary Morris.
So we got two Mary Morrises get knocked off. Neither one of them appear to have been murdered by a Terminator, but we have no.
We don't know that. It could have been a Terminator. We don't know.
That's true. Maybe Mary Morris is the Sarah Connor of real life.
There you have it. We have solved it.
Also, it's very close to Maren Morris, who's a country star.
Why you got to bring her into it? She's just at home in the pandemic.
I'm just saying, I want her to be safe
her
too.
New baby. Leave her out of this.
I don't even know she had a kid. That's great. Good for her.
She had it right before right at the start of the pandemic.
Which, I mean, I don't know if that's the best timing or the worst timing. Because one, when you have a baby, you don't want a lot of people coming over.
Right. So best timing ever. Nobody's there to bother her. Although nobody's there to help her either.
Exactly. So you don't get much help because people are like, I can't get by. I might bring the death.
But then again, you're not worried about having to go to work. So you're like, I mean, I didn't sleep until 4:00 in the morning. So whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that's me every day. But
that's my daughter, my college kid right now, who normally is going to sleep as I am waking up and leaving the house for my morning show.
Yeah. I'm not good at sleeping, and I've passed that on to my kids. And so we're going camping next weekend, and it's going to be a cavalcade of mostly people being awake all night long.
And don't forget s'mores.
Well, yeah, we'll do s'mores, but at some point, we're going to central Wisconsin. When the sun goes down, you got about an hour before you're going to get eaten alive and carried off by mosquitoes.
Oh, I bet they're big there.
You got to get inside. And we're out at the lake, and there's wilderness everywhere. Last time we were up there, I took the dog for a walk at 5 a.m. because the dog was like, "We're up." I'm like, "Great." We go outside and we get in a staring contest with an entire family of deer, which was majestic and beautiful, but also terrifying. They're like 15 feet from us. There's 3 little baby fawns and a mom, and they're all just staring at us like, "What are you gonna do?" And my dog's like, "Let's all play."
Have you seen that video on it's on Instagram and on Twitter, and there's 2 versions. There's a deer and a dog, and then there's 2 dogs, and it's like, "Hey, what's your name?" "My name's Tony."
Oh, yeah. Tony.
F you, Tony. What's your name? Ezekiel. F you, Ezekiel.
And I mean, it's not far off. The problem is my dog would never say F you. She'd be like, "Let's be best friends. You want to come live at my house? I want you to hang out. You want to wrestle? Let's wrestle." And I'd be like, "No, you can't do that." She is notorious for catching squirrels, but like she doesn't hurt them.
She just likes to play with them.
She'll just like catch them, and then she'll let them up again, and they'll like start to run away, and she'll catch them again. And I'm like, you cannot play with your food.
Her catch and release game is strong.
Oh, she loves it. She doesn't want to destroy anything other than like every fuzzy animal I've ever stuffed animal I've ever gotten for her. Other than that, though, like living things, she's like, "No, this is cool. Let's play." I have a friend who has a German Shepherd. This German Shepherd is like 70 pounds. It is a big, scary looking German Shepherd. And my dog wants to wrestle it so much that it doesn't like playing with my dog. Like the German Shepherd will hide under the table because he's like, "This dog needs to stop tackling me. This is not okay." Like she's like just wrestling with me the whole time, and I just want to lay down.
Aww.
Yeah. So my dog also doesn't know when to stop.
Aww. She just wants to play.
She just wants to play, and she wants to talk all the time, and very much like her father. Just talking all the time, having a good time, just wants to play.
All right, so remix time. Time to recap it. So Michael Crawford, when you first started talking about Condor Man, and then you said Michael Crawford, and I was like, wait. And then I was like, oh my G, Michael Crawford, because of the fact that Phantom of the Opera is such an amazing, I mean, it's one of those that it is my top, and I don't think that there is anything that can top it. Hamilton is close, but it's not quite there because there's just something so transformative, something so captivating about Sarah Brightman's voice, and then and then you add Michael Crawford, and it's dark and mysterious and haunting. His voice is so haunting. Like when he's singing the music of the night, and you're just like, oh my, and
He actually got to sing that for George H.W. Bush's like one of their Kennedy Center honors thing in like the late 80s. And it was when he had recently won the Tony Award, and his voice is just, I mean, Sarah Brightman is just above and beyond, and her voice is amazing. I mean, you are Andrew Lloyd Webber's literal muse.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot going on there from an artistic standpoint.
But good pick. Kudos, sir. Good shit.
Well,
good pick.
Thank you.
Good job, chap.
And for me, what is, and I got to be honest, I'm not a big true crime guy. I'm a fake crime guy. Like I love like murder mysteries and all that. But it seemingly gets so frustrating in every one of these stories, and today's is no exception, is how often so little is accomplished by law enforcement. Like we've got 2 people of the same name who die within a very short period of each other, and yet it takes people on the internet, people like the family members, to make the connection. And even then, it's gone so far at this point that this is likely to never get solved unless you said like somebody has a deathbed confession like that. It is consistently disheartening, and maybe I have too much of a expectation because I watch like super detective shows, and the detectives are, always figuring things out.
They're not all Columbo.
They're not. And there's actually a statue to Columbo in, I think, Greece somewhere. And when everybody was tearing down statues of Columbus, somebody on Twitter said we should just re-erect statues to Columbo.
I'm here for it.
I was like, I like that. I'm just a plain simple statue trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, I think next week it will leave you satisfied. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay. I need to see a little bit of competency from some law enforcement organization in one of these stories, or I'm going to have to seriously doubt my faith in Jim Gordon, who is clearly the thing holding Gotham together, not Batman.
I have given us 3 completely unsolved cases, haven't I? Well, last week.
You have.
Last week is solved.
No, last week
we just
ish.
Solved-ish.
Yeah. At least the guy who was inappropriately put in jail for a very long period of time is now on the way to being out of jail.
That's true. All right.
Well, that is some poor comfort in some weak sauce.
Poor comfort and smothered in the weak sauce.
Yeah. Like you could try to hide that, but no.
I do want you to know that I am totally making a no minutia Adam t-shirt. I asked my mom about it because mom said, I love Adam, but he really does get into the minutia.
I do, Mom. I'm sorry. I have questions about the silliest things. I really do. I mean, the funny part is that, like, I have former coworkers and romantic partners who would probably love to buy that t-shirt.
It's going to sell out.
They're going to be like, yeah, finally, somebody can tell this guy to stop telling me stuff I don't want to hear.
We're going to have a no minutia Adam photo shoot.
Yeah, it's going to be very short. Because otherwise, I'm just going to tell the photographer all about my life. No, I mean, honestly, no minutia is something that I need to do a better job of. I was literally at my divorce hearing, and the judge is just trying to, like, establish, like, who we are, and, like, just because, like, so you're da 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 da, and you work here and here and here, and then he asked me, he's like, so you're Adam Weingart and you work at this place, and then I told him all about what my work did for like 5 minutes, and he's like, sir, I just needed to know that you have a job. And I'm like, oh, okay, but if you ever want a t-shirt, let me know. I was like, you're a Gopher fan? Yeah, I work with these Gopher people. We like work at the football games, the basketball games. And it was like, dude, like my ex literally nudged me and she was like, he doesn't need to know all that.
He doesn't care. He just wants to know that you have a job. Care.
Yeah, but to be fair, he got back at me at the end when at the very end we're doing the whole, like, we're done with the whole court thing and like we're divorced and everything. And he's like, thank you guys, and we'll see you later. And I was like, yeah, statistically. But geez, man, give me a little hope.
Oh my gosh. All right, there we go. And on that note, that's how we're ending this week.
Yeah. We'll see you again, statistically.
Statistically, we'll be back. Oh, real quick. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. Wear your mask, please.
Yeah. I'm actually doing a thing on my Instagram. If you want to follow me, you can probably find it somehow. But I'm doing hashtag mask of the day because I have a lot of masks. Like I went all in, and today I wore a Yoda baby Yoda mask.
Oh, nice.
So that's going to be up on the Instagram. So I encourage everyone to share the artistic stylings of their masks because we all have to wear them. So why not have fun with it?
So you should post that on our A-Side B-Side podcast on Instagram or on Facebook. You can find us there. You could also check out our website. We mentioned that earlier, A-Side B-Side podcast.com. But I really feel like you should put that on our Instagram.
Yes, I should share that with our Instagram as well.
Yes.
I have so many Instagrams.
You should, okay, so send them to me and we will do like a collective one post week's worth of mask of the day.
All right, sounds good. I literally have 30. So
all right, we are 90 days out from election. If you need help getting registered, you can head on over to our website. We've got links there, asidebsidepodcast.com. We want to make sure you get yourself registered. Get out and vote. It is so important. All right, Adam, how do you feel about it? I think it's been a good one.
I actually think this was the most natural of the 4 so far.
All right, well, there you go. There you have it.
Yeah.
That's another t-shirt. It was the most natural.
Of the 4.
Of the 4. All right. Thanks, Adam.
Bye. I think that was good. I liked it.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the A-Side, B-Side podcast. If you enjoyed it, please give us 5 stars on Apple and join us again next Friday.